Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for EVE Echoes. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Rather than examining a particular ship or looking at a particular topic, we're instead going to be talking about every single ship that you unlock once you hit tech level 7. Now, this was actually a video that I wasn't certain that I wanted to do, as to me, it felt like I was going to be saying, hey, here's a load of ships that I'm going to be doing videos for in the foreseeable future. But tons of you have asked, look, some of us are hitting Tech 7 today, some of us hit it yesterday, what are all these ships about? Can you just do a brief overview? And heck, I'm not one to turn around and say to you guys, no, I'm not going to do something just because I don't think you'll enjoy it. If you're telling me you want it, then damn straight I'm going to do it. So here it is, every tech level 7 ship that unlocks, what it's about, what you can use it for, and if I reckon it's actually going to be worthwhile to build. Now, if you do enjoy this video more than ever, please let me know either by hitting a like on it or commenting down below. Subscribe to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, ding that notification bell to never miss a video, and let me know what other topics you want me to cover in future videos. Finally, if you do want to go the extra mile to support this channel, you can do so by joining us on Patreon. Details are on screen now. Otherwise, let's jump into those ship trees and have a look at everything that becomes available now that you're tech level 7. Now see, you thought I was either going to start with the Minmatar Republic as my favourite ship tree, or the Amarr Empire as the one that I'm supposed to hate more than any other, but seem to be flying the most of these days. Well, no, we're actually going to start with the Gallente tree. Now, when we look at the Tech 7 ships, you will notice a running theme across each of those branches. Every single one of the 4 main empires kind of has the same things at Tech level 7. In the frigates, you'll find they are the frigate assaults. In the destroyers, they are assault destroyers. In the cruisers, you have the heavy Guardian cruisers, the E-War cruisers, and the logistics cruisers. And then you should have your first battle cruisers coming into effect. Yes, once you hit tech level 7, battle cruisers become a thing. So let's start at the frigates and work our way up. Now, the first one we have is the Incursus Assault, and I'm actually really excited to be getting hold of this ship very, very soon. The Assault frigates all share the same profile, 3 high slots, 3 mids, 3 lows, and 3 of each of the rigs. They have a roll bonus of plus 5 seconds to damage control activation time, and they have advanced micro warp drive operation bonuses, which are the same across the board, 10% reduction to warp drive signature radius penalty, and a 5% reduction to warp capacitor need. This ultimately means that if you're using these assault frigates, you can use a micro warp drive to get up close and personal, and I believe you can actually speed tank using a micro warp drive because you don't have your signature radius increased nearly as much as you otherwise would, and I'm pretty certain the speed does massively outweigh the signature radius penalty. The damage control activation is kind of like with the Dramiel. It means that if you're up close and personal and start to take a little bit too much damage, you can activate that damage control and it will protect you for a long period of time. Kind of gives you an idea of the 2 of the low slots that you should be fitting on this thing. But again, obviously I'm going to be doing videos on these because they are frigates and I love the assault frigates. Now, once you come down to Advanced Frigate Command, we kind of have the same thing here going on as with the Tech 4 Interceptor frigates, that you don't have any particular weapon skills. The skills to damage are actually based off Advanced Frigate Command. In this case, obviously, the Incursus Assault is a railgun frigate that also happens to use armor repairers. So you can kind of look at that and guess that if you like armor repairers, if you like railguns, if you fancy using a ship that uses a micro warp drive and a damage control, the Incursus Assault is a great ship to start with. It's actually a really cool little ship. I thoroughly enjoyed the assault frigates in the final test and in the open beta, and I'm looking forward to flying all of those and doing some dedicated videos. In the destroyers, we have the Algos Assault. Again, it's an assault frigate, which gives it that roll bonus of 5 seconds damage control activation time, and it has a drone velocity increase, as you would expect from the Algos as well. Advanced Small Drone Operation increases the drone DPS, drone hit points, and Advanced Destroyer Command gives you Warp Disruptor optimal range and Energy Neutralizer optimal range. This is kind of the be-all and end-all of the Algos line. If you've been flying, say, the Algos Trainer, the Algos, or the Algos Sniper, this kind of does those same kind of things. Yeah, okay, you don't have the whole sniper mode. Hopefully these do have actually the assault mode that we had back in the open beta test. I didn't get to fly assault destroyers during the final test, so I don't know if that mode still made it in. I know that mode is not on the assault frigates, but there is an assault mode, or was an assault mode, that you could activate for some extra damage bonuses as well. Just made your ship a little bit better when you were up close and personal, kind of the opposite of a sniper. And yes, I'm aware, people in the comments, I say up close and personal a lot. Screw you, it's hard to come up with new stuff when you're talking like this. So the Algos Assault, to me, as I said, it is kind of the be-all and end-all of the Algos line here. This is an excellent ship if you're wanting to go down the line of using drones. If you're a drone brawler, this is probably one of the best frigates in the game, if not the best frigate in the game, simply for the sheer amount of damage that it can kick out with those drones. You get a decent range there to the warp disruptors, and your energy neutralizers allow you to shut down anything your opponent's ship is doing as well. This makes this actually an excellent destroyer-level ship for PvP. Wholeheartedly recommend. Once we come into the cruisers, we have the Thorax Guardian, the first of the Guardian cruisers. Now, I have done a video on the Thorax, which explains that this is one tanky little bruise cruise. Ultimately, the idea of this is to get up close and personal. Yes, I caught myself saying it then, is to really do some damage up close and personal with this. But with the Thorax Guardian, you also have the capability of using the Armor Link module. That means that every ship within a certain radius, instead of them taking damage to their armor, you take reduced damage to your armor in their place. Very, very useful. If you've watched the video I've put out already on how shield field modules work, it's kind of the same idea, but with armor. I will have an Armor Link module video out soon, I promise. In the second slot here on Tech 7 cruisers, we have the Execra. Now, this is the first of the logistics cruisers. These are all about healing people. In this case, it's remote armor repairers, so it is repairing armor. If you've got a fleet of armor tanks, then the Execra is an excellent ship for keeping them topped up. You sit behind the lines, you boost up your fleet's armor, and just repair any damage they take, so that they don't have to worry too much about any damage that they're taking. They might even be able to go to fly their ships with no tank low slots at all, and instead just go for extra damage and that kind of thing. Logistics are actually a really interesting topic to talk about. The Execra, between the Execra and the Amarr version, whose name eludes me at this point in time, but we'll get to in a moment, personally, I kind of go a little bit more towards the Amarr one, simply because it's got the better capacitors and the ability to keep going for a little bit longer. That said, the Execra is still an awesome ship. It does the same thing, but in a slightly different way. The two of them, when you look at them, you'll see their stats are slightly different. Here, I'm pretty sure it's the optimal range, whereas on the Amarr version, it's more of the fall-off distance that it gets the bonuses to. But you get remote armor repair efficiency across the board here, reduction to capacitor need, and remote capacitor transmitter range as well, which allows you to obviously pass your capacitor off to other nearby ships. Now, the third and final of the cruisers is the Celestis Covert Ops. This is kind of like the Bellicose and several of the others, in that this is an E-war ship. Ultimately, if you look at this on here, you'll see sensor damper strength. Yeah, what are sensor dampers? Well, I've got a big video coming out soon on everything about those E-war modules, when we can expect those to be added to the game, and what they actually do. Ultimately, they're not in the game yet, so if you build this ship, you've got a load of stats there to sensor damper that do nothing. You can't get that bonus does nothing currently in the game because the module doesn't exist. As such, the Celestis Covert Ops, not a great ship to build yet, but in the future, 100%, if you like your sensor dampers, if you want to stop people locking onto targets eventually, that's a great ship to look forward to in the future. Finally then, on the Gallente tree, we have the Myrmidon, the first of our battle cruisers. Now, the Myrmidon is a drone battle cruiser, as you can see here. 15 kilometers drone control range, extra drone DPS for advanced medium drone upgrade, battle cruiser command, and gives you armor repair efficiency. So it's an armor repairing drone boat. 5 drones, 5 medium drones this thing can launch, with a whopping extra 150 DPS on top of what they already have, at an additional 15 kilometers range. The Myrmidon is a beast. It has a large tank to it, it's very hard to kill, and it can kick out an extreme amount of DPS with those drones. And because medium drones are still pretty good against frigates and destroyers, it doesn't suffer like most battle cruisers do against the smaller, faster moving ships. This means it's actually one of the most powerful battle cruisers in EVE Echoes once you hit tech level 7, and if you are into Gallente ships, if you're into drone ships, and you fancy trying out a battle cruiser, get your grubby mitts on one of these bad boys now. Not only do they look really cool, I do love the look of the Myrmidon personally, they do pack one heck of a punch, and they can do some serious damage whilst surviving an awful long time as well. Very, very tanky battle cruiser, packs a hefty hefty punch to any ship that comes its way. We then come to the Caldari State tree, and of course Tech 7 in frigates gives us our assault frigate, which this time around is the Merlin Assault. Now the Merlin to me is actually one of the most iconic hulls in the entirety of EVE. I love how this thing looks, so again I'm super excited to get to fly one of these and actually have an excuse to do so. Like with the Incursus Assault, you've got a 5-second damage control activation time roll bonus, you've got that same micro warp drive operation bonus, and the advanced frigate command bonus is very similar as well. Small railgun damage is the same, and this time around it's railgun accuracy fall off rather than optimal range, and shield resistance instead of armor. This ultimately means that the Merlin Assault is going to be used as a shield-tanking railgun assault frigate rather than an armor-tanking one, and personally I prefer shield-tanking when it comes to sort of a speed tank brawler frigate, simply because if things do go wrong, I've got a bit more safety net to pull away. If a shield tank goes wrong, I've still got armor and hull to go through whilst I'm making my getaway. If an armor tank goes south, ultimately I've only got hull to make that same sort of pullback, and these frigates are starting to get a little bit more expensive. I think these work out around the 30 to 40 million mark in their materials and their actual making costs, so expect to see these on the market around the 50 to 60 million mark. That means they do actually start to hurt a little bit if you lose them. That said though, they are excellent training for going up into the faction frigates. The Merlin Assault is actually not at all dissimilar from the Daredevil. Same as the Incursus Assault is actually pretty close to the Daredevil as well. You can play it in a very similar sort of build. It's like the mini trainer Daredevil, I suppose, to a certain degree. I'm really looking forward to flying one of these. I will have a video up very soon. And then, of course, we come to the Assault Destroyer. In this case, it is, of course, the Corax. We've got the same Corax roll bonus of missile torpedo velocity plus 25%, and we've got that assault bonus of damage control activation time. Below these, again, it's small missile torpedo damage and velocity, optimal range for stasis webifiers, and energy Nosferatus. This means that the Corax Assault isn't going to have the same range as the Corax Sniper, but it is going to have higher applied damage per second. Ultimately, if you are in close combat, if you're brawling with this, and I'm not saying it necessarily even has to be close, you can still get obviously 30-kilometer range out of this thing. If you're using the standard missiles and not going for like you're not going to go for a kiting build, you're going to go for a skirmishing or more of a brawling build with this, it can pack a punch and it can take one in return, which is the key point here. You're almost speed tanking. You're using your shields, you're using your damage control to keep yourself at sort of a decent enough range. This is actually the Corax that I would probably most likely put torpedoes on, simply because you can get up close and really whack them in the face, and with that extra roll bonus up here, missile torpedo velocity, and the explosion velocity there increase, makes the torpedoes just that little bit better at applying their damage. Corax Assault is one I'm really looking forward to flying. That, again, I'll have a video as soon as I get my grubby mitts on one. As we go across into the cruisers, again we have the same kind of spread as before. This time if we start on the right, we have the Guardian, which is of course an upgrade to the Mower. Same kind of thing as the Mower itself, but has that shield field module. If you've watched my video on how shield field modules work, you'll understand how the Mower Guardian ultimately operates. You sit there, you take all of the hits onto your shield rather than the fleet taking hits onto their shield. You are the tank. In this MMO, you are the tank taking the hits for everyone else, and quite frankly this is one of the beefier shield tanks in the entire of EVE Echoes. This thing can take one heck of a beating. That shield field module, the shield resistance bonuses, and just its basic stats overall, 13,704 to start with, and then you've got 5 low slots to pump that with, makes the Mower Guardian an absolutely exceptional tank. I do expect to see these in a lot of PvP fleets soon, and I'm not looking forward to facing them, because this is not a ship that's easy to... Normally you can just get inside, with a Thrasher Guardian you can just get inside that bubble and pop it, because it's a Thrasher. This time around, it's a Mower. Mowers are tanky as all heck to begin with. Now I've got to get up close and somehow survive the onslaught of everything shooting me? Oh, that's a nightmare situation. That is pure nightmare fuel right there. Looking into the logistics slot here is the Osprey. Now I'm actually going to zoom in on this one because I love how this thing looks. I know a lot of people don't like it, but to me that actually does look a little bit like a proper bird of prey. It's got its beak at the front, it's got its wings folded up. I love how this ship looks, and it is actually a really good ship. If like me you enjoy flying logistics, this is a great one. This goes alongside the Scythe there as the shield booster versions. This one has optimal range rather than the fall off, which I think is what the Scythe goes for. But again, it's all about that remote shield boosting using your remote shield boosters rather than any form of damage. If you're buying an Osprey and fitting missiles or railguns onto it, you're doing it wrong. This thing is very much fleet support. But I will say, an Osprey and a Moa Guardian together, oh man, that... yeah, you've got one of the tankiest shield tanks in the game and then an excellent shield booster sitting right behind it in that same bubble. Which do you go for? Which do you go for first? Do you take out the one that ultimately has the shield that's protecting everything, or do you try to take out the whopping tanky healer whilst everyone in the opposition fleet is shooting at you? Yeah, not a fun prospect ultimately. Shield booster activation time and capacitor need. Obviously this thing is... cap stability is always going to be something that you focus on when it comes to a logistics cruiser. So getting it cap stable and having skills that are going to help that, always useful. Thirdly and finally then in the cruiser slot here for Caldari, we have the Blackbird Covert Ops, and just like the other Covert Ops running theme here, the actual modules you're looking for at the time of me filming this are not in the game. In this case, electronic jammers are not currently available in EVE Echoes. Hopefully they're coming soon. Again, I've got a video coming soon that explains what all of these are, how those work, how they work in EVE Online, and how I'm expecting them to work in EVE Echoes, and when we're expecting them to come. Until then, ultimately you're getting a ship that has 4 high slots, 4 low slots, and 3 mids, so kind of similar to something like the Caracal, with a load of roll bonuses that don't actually do anything. That electronic jammer strength and signature radius penalty don't really help it. You're just getting 6% missile torpedo damage for advanced cruiser command, and quite frankly, I would just go for the Caracal Navy issue over this if that's what you're looking for. Keep an eye on the Blackbird Covert Ops when that finally arrives, when we do finally get the EWA modules. This will be worth paying attention to. Quick point to note, because I know some of you are going, but hang on, it's got a Covert Ops cloaking device. You can fit this, sneak up on someone, drop that cloak, and then whack them with torpedoes, right? No. Wrong, you can't. Ultimately, when you drop a Covert Ops cloaking device, there is still a 30 seconds delay before you can lock on to someone else, let alone actually fire off any shots. If we go across and actually have a look at the Manticore as an example here, you can see you've got here a 100% reduction to cloaking device lock delay. Stealth bombers are the only thing that can drop the cloak and immediately lock. If you're going up to someone in a Blackbird, you drop that cloak, you then have to sit there and stare at them for 30 seconds before you can even start to lock on. It's not going to work, sorry guys. Then in the battle cruisers here, we have the Ferox. Again, the Ferox is an incredibly tanky ship. This thing takes an awful lot of damage to get through that shield. Denting this thing is a monstrous task. It does get extra range to the medium railguns, so this does kind of become almost a sniper ship. You want to put not the snub-nosed onto this. You're going to be looking more at going for rifled railguns and really leaning into that railgun optimal range and accuracy fall-off. 25% extra range means that if you've got, say, 20 kilometers, you're now doing 25 kilometers, rather than if you've got snub-nosed at 1 kilometer, you're now got, what, 1.5? Oh no. Ooh. Go with the long-range guns, sit at the back, pound people into dust before they even, like, actually start to approach you. You get a decent amount of range, solid damage, and even when they do get up close and personal, whopping great big tank there of over 24,000 to begin with, and yeah, it just gets better from there. With 5 low slots, you can really tank this thing out, or you can go for a full-on sniper build, add a load of tracking computers. Add a load of tracking computers into those slots, put 5 tracking computers on this thing with 6 medium rifled railguns, and just laugh. Check out your range, let me know in the comment section below how you get on with that. And then we come to the Amarr Empire ship tree. Now, I'm going to drop a bombshell on you guys. My favourite ship in the game that is not a faction frigate is the one we're about to talk about. Now, I know that I'd like to think that's a bombshell for a lot of you, but I think a lot of you are getting used to the fact that actually I don't hate laser ships as much as I try to make out I do. Yeah, the Punisher Assault. This is a ship that I've been looking forward to since the game launched, because it's just an exciting little ship. If you look at its fitting profile, it is basically the same as a succubus, and in how you play this, it's basically a succubus as well. This is the ultimate succubus training ship. It does everything that a succubus does, but a lot cheaper and not quite as effectively. Ultimately, this, if you lose it, will set you back 50 to 60 million, whereas losing a succubus will set you back 500 to 600 million. It's a magnitude of 10 smaller. But the playstyle is pretty much identical, whereas the succubus has an afterburner that is boosted up so much that it acts like it's a micro warp drive. Here we have a micro warp drive that just doesn't have the penalty that you would expect micro warp drive to have. Very similar playstyle. Now, like the other assault frigates, damage control activation time, warp drive signature radius penalty reduction, warp drive capacitor need reduction, and then advanced frigate command is what upgrades your weapons. In this case, laser damage, laser capacitor need down, and armor resistance. Now, ultimately, it's tempting to possibly consider with armor resistance, why don't we put some plates on this and just have a big armor tank? You know, once we hit that point. Don't do that. Plates do slow your ship down, and we are going for as fast a moving ship as possible. Stick with armor repairers on this one. Now, I'm hoping actually by time you guys are watching this on the 17th, I filmed this on the 16th, by time you guys are watching this, I should have a Punisher Assault, I should be flying it around, and I will have a video out in the next couple of days about how this ship works, and if I'm actually enjoying it as much as I thought I would. Then we come to the assault destroyers for the Amarr Empire, and the Dragoon Assault is kind of the ship that the Dragoon has been trying to be its entire life. The Dragoon Sniper, I'll be honest, is kind of that awkward teenage goth and emo phase for the Dragoon, even though this is the one that's dressed in black, whereas the Dragoon Sniper is in vibrant red and gold, but you get the analogy. Whereas the Dragoon Sniper kind of has a sniper mode that you use every now and then, but ultimately probably find you get on better with brawling. The Dragoon Assault drops the sniper mode and just goes, you know what, I'm a brawler now. That's what I do. I'm going to get up close and personal, I'm going to whack you in the face until you explode. And that's exactly what it does. Drone velocity bonuses, damage control activation time bonuses, extra drone DPS, 3 drone tubes to begin with is always very nice, energy Nosferatu optimal range, energy neutralizer optimal range, although admittedly even with that fully trained it takes the optimal range from 4 kilometers up to 5.5, so yeah, you're still going to be orbiting around the 6 or 7 kilometer mark, but you're going to be able to use those pulse lasers nice and effectively, just ripping people apart. As far as the Dragoon goes, having lasers in those slots just tears through someone's shields. You then put in like a load of explosive drones, things like the Minmatar Valkyries, or Warriors, sorry, the small ones are Warriors, and you just absolutely shred. You shred at close range and you don't worry about it. That's what the assault ships do, and the Dragoon leans heavily into that. Then, of course, we come up to the cruisers, and like with the others, we of course start with a Guardian ship. This time around, it is the Mala. Mala, Mola, Mela, Mele, however you want to say this, I call it Mala. If you've watched my Mala video for the standard Mala, I do apologise. Yes, there were a couple of goof-ups I made on that. I do talk about pulse lasers when I'm talking about beams. I'm saying that I like pulse lasers because they've got the longer range and you can control ranges much better. I meant beams. The other thing that I did was I did accidentally fit small armor repairers on there instead of medium armor repairers, but in my defense, they are both called Gorget, they are both the same icon, it's an easy mistake to make. So thank you for those of you who in the comment section were very supportive of that. We had a good laugh about it, and I hope a lot of you still took the intent of the video rather than the jackasses that sat there going, oh, how can I trust what you're saying? You're such an idiot. It's like, no, everyone makes mistakes, cut me some slack and sod off. Anyway, so the Mala Guardian is the next logical step up from there. If you're flying a Mala and enjoying the tank, then the Mala Guardian is its badass big brother. And when I say badass, I mean, come on, black and silvery gold, look at this thing. If that is not one of the schmexiest ships in the game, I do not know what is. And oh man. Man, I'm tempted to go laser cruisers just for that. Anyway, of course, it is a Guardian ship, so it's all about that armor link module. You lose one of the high slots compared to the Mala, so give up any pretense of you actually doing any damage. But if you're in a fleet, this thing will keep your friends' armor tank ships nice and safe. Any damage that goes to their armor instead comes to you at a reduced value. Very, very powerful, incredibly tanky ship. Just don't expect it to do much in the way of damage anytime soon. Now, I'm not issuing that as a challenge. I know it can still do damage, but it's not going to be as good as the standard Mala for damage. It's not going to be as good as an Omen Navy issue, come on. Now, on the subject of keeping your team alive, we then of course come to the Augurer. The Augurer is the Amarr equivalent of the logistics vessel, and to me this is slightly better than the Gallente one, simply because this has a bigger power grid and a bigger capacitor, which allows it to fund those just that little bit better. And quite frankly, an Augurer with a Mala 2 is the stuff of literal nightmares to go up against, because you're not killing that Mala 2 before you kill the Augurer, and you're probably going to struggle to kill the Augurer because the Mala 2's got an armor link module active on it. So yeah, it's a bit of catch-22 and a lovely vicious cycle for you to try and figure out how to break. If you're into big fleet combat, then get an Augurer, a Mala Guardian together, and just go have fun. Go have fun with a small fleet sitting in the middle there, just going, yeah, you ain't touching us, boy. Very good for a budding logistics pilot. If you're looking to start out with remote armor repairers at sort of the medium size, 100% the Augurer is the one I would go for. Not to hate on the Gallente ships, but the Augurer, as far as I'm concerned, is just better. Finally, then, we come to the Covert Ops cruiser. Of course, this is the Arbitrator Covert Ops. Like the Arbitrator before it, I don't recommend building this ship, because simply put, are weapon disruptors in the game yet? No, Benzie, they're not. Well, then why would you build a ship that is bonused around something that doesn't exist? Half of your ship's bonuses do nothing right now. If you do watch that video on E-War, as I said, I should have it out in the next few days about the different E-War modules, check out what weapon disruptors do. They are one of my favourite types of E-War, they're great fun to use, and yeah, once they're out, the Arbitrator Covert Ops, or just the standard Arbitrator, becomes an amazing ship. Otherwise, though, it's basically a ship that has a small signature radius for a cruiser and slightly better drone DPS. 20% drone DPS goes up to 100%, but quite frankly, if you're going to be doing that, why aren't you in a Vexor? That would be my question. In between a Vexor Navy issue and an Arbitrator Covert Ops, if you're just going for the drone damage, just go with the Vexor. Then finally, of course, we come to the battle cruisers. Now you'll notice that the Amarr Empire actually get 2 battle cruisers this time around. Bit unfair, right? You know, Gallente and Caldari only getting 1, but yeah, there we are. First up is the Prophecy. This is a drone boat with a vengeance. This is kind of like the Myrmidon, and the two are pretty comparable. Similar stat line across the board, 5 drone tubes there. They can launch small and medium drones. 15km drone control range, you get additional drone DPS, drone velocity, and armor resistance. This means that the Prophecy and the Myrmidon are actually pretty similar. I think the main difference you'll find between the two is that the Prophecy has a larger armor tank and smaller shields, whereas the Myrmidon has a slightly more balanced profile. It's still an armor tank, the Myrmidon, but the Prophecy is more obviously an armor tank, if that makes sense. Ultimately, go for whichever one you like the look of more. You're going to enjoy it that way. I mean, the Prophecy is a very cool looking ship. I do prefer the look of the Myrmidon, but either one works really nicely as a drone battle cruiser. They are very tanky, 5 low slots with all of those bonuses down here to the armor resistance as well if you're training into battle cruiser command. Excellent drone battle cruiser, you're going to be kicking out the damage. And again, that's kind of my point. Why would you go for something like the Arbitrator Covert Ops if all you care about is the drone damage? Go for the Prophecy if you have to. Secondly, then, you have a prototype ship, the Harbinger Prototype. This is ultimately a dumbed-down version of the Tech 8 battle cruiser, the Harbinger. Awesome looking ship, very famous design. 6 high slots, 1 drone tube, 5 low slots, very tanky, very high DPS, medium laser optimal range. This is kind of like an Omen Navy issue on steroids. It's slower moving, yes. It's a bigger target, yes. But it also dishes out the damage and it has the tank to boot. This thing, oh boy, this is going to take a beating, especially if you happen to have a Mala Guardian nearby with an Augurer, because yeah, that's how that works. Harbinger Prototype, very, very good medium laser ship. Extra damage all over the board, reduced laser capacitors, increased laser accuracy fall off and optimal range. This makes an excellent laser sniper. Put the medium beams on here, stand at a distance, and just literally obliterate anything. Annihilate. Reduce to atomic particles anything that dares look at you funny. Then finally, for the 4 main empires, we come, of course, to the Minmatar Republic, and the Minmatar Republic's assault frigate is the Breacher Assault. Now, I don't know. I don't know, there's a big part of me here that sits there and goes, like, I don't want to, you know, crap all over the poor Breacher. I love this ship. This is an excellent ship, but I do really wish this was a Rifter assault, that this was a frigate that was using cannons. There were just so few cannon frigates in the game. I really wish it was not just another missile frigate. But as far as missile frigates go, if you're waiting for the Gamma, this is an excellent ship to keep you going in the meantime. As with the other assault frigates, the roll bonus there to damage control activation time, the warp drive, signature radius penalty, and warp drive capacity need as before, but with missile torpedo activation time and shield booster amount. If you've watched my video on getting started with missiles, you'll have seen me use the standard Breacher for brawling at sort of tech level 3. The Breacher Assault can do that kind of brawling at tech level 7 and above. This thing packs a punch and is kind of your little stepping stone before you come to a Gamma. That's if you're going with the torpedo build. Of course, you can build this into something closer to the Gamma if you go for a kiting build, but it does require a bit more heavy rig investment, and it will suffer on the damage, because there ultimately you're going to be fitting the 3 rigs for missile velocity, not for damage, and you've got no innate bonuses to missile velocity, to missile range, that kind of thing. So for kiting, it's possible, it's just not overly great at it. This is very much more built around the concept of brawling with a micro warp drive, and for that, yeah, it's damn good. And again, this is one I'm very excited to get my hands on. Yes, I wish it was a Rifter assault, but I'm still going to be getting my hands on this and getting a video out ASAP. Once we hit the destroyer assaults, we come to the Talwar. Yes, again, missile torpedo velocity as you'd expect from a Talwar, 5-second damage control activation time, and then the usual bonuses to missile torpedo damage, along with warp drive signature radius and stasis weather fire optimal range. Again, you don't have the same range that you'd get out of the Talwar sniper, but this is a much better skirmisher and brawler. Up close and personal, yep, there's that sentence again, you're going to be doing a lot of damage in a very short period of time, and you are incredibly survivable as you do so, making this an excellent ship if you're the kind of person who likes sitting at those shorter ranges. Once we move the Minmatar into the cruisers, we get the Rupture Guardian. The Rupture Guardian, of course, continues the Rupture line of cruisers, those awesome looking pirate ships, but takes it down the shield field module length like we saw earlier with the Moa Guardian. Shield field module is the aim of the game here. This is a lot smaller a ship if you look at its signature radius of only 86 compared to the Moa Guardian. Ultimately, it is a smaller ship than the Moa Guardian, making it a little bit more personally survivable, but if you're going to go for a shield tank Guardian, my money is still going to be on the Moa, simply because it can just take a bit more of a beating. That said, the Rupture Guardian, with its ability to sit there with the strike cannons, does give it a longer range over the Moa, and for that, if you're sitting there with a fleet of stabbers, like stabber snipers or stabber fleet issues around you, all equipped with strikes, doing the artillery build, then the Rupture Guardian is ultimately going to be the better one, simply because it can still do some damage from that kind of distance, whereas using the Moa, it's going to be a lot shorter range than the ships around it. So do bear that in mind, but quite frankly, if you're just going for something that has a shield field module and is a cruiser, I'd go more for the Moa than the poor old Rupture Guardian. For the Scythe, though, this is our logistics cruiser. I did actually use one of these in the open beta test, so there is a video on this channel floating around of me using a Scythe. It's kind of like any of the any of the logistics frigates. Again, it's all about remote shield boosters, keeping the shields alive. Personally, I prefer the look of the Osprey, but I do prefer the stats here of the Scythe. It's a bit more toward the optimal range than for the accuracy fall-off. To me, I just like the Scythe. It's a ship that I've enjoyed using in the past. It's got an unusual look to it, and it's just, I've had a lot of fun with these in the past, helping people keep their ships alive, and it is an excellent ship for that. This and a Moa will just make a nightmare fuel. Finally, then, we have the Bellicose Covert Ops. As you'd imagine with all of the other Covert Ops, and like the Bellicose before it, no point building these yet because target painters aren't in the game. I'm not going to keep repeating that. Bellicose Covert Ops, excellent missile ship, just no point building it yet. If you want missiles, go for something else. There are better missile ships. Ultimately, they're better, but they don't have the target painter. And if the target painter's not in the game, there's no reason to go for the Bellicose. Sorry, sad, but it'll be there eventually. Now, the Minmatar tree does again have 2 battle cruisers. We've got the Cyclone. This is kind of your first battle cruiser for going with missiles, and oh boy, is it a doozy. Very, very tanky, the Cyclone. Excellent here. You can see missile torpedo velocity gets additional range there as a roll bonus, and for advanced medium missile torpedo upgrade, plus a reduction to the activation time, gives this some astonishing range, whilst at the same time being extraordinarily tanky. If you like your medium missiles, if you've been using a Caracal Navy issue, the Cyclone seems like an obvious upgrade, because most of the modules that you've already got, and most of the skills that you've been training, transfer perfectly into this beastly ship. Strongly recommend. The Hurricane prototype, though, of course, is the dumbed-down version of the Tier 8 Hurricane. This is one of my favourite ships in the game. I love this thing so much. 6 high slots, 5 low slots, extra damaging, whilst still being surprisingly tanky. Again, medium cannon, optimal range and accuracy fall-off built in as roll bonuses, with medium cannon damage and activation time put in there as skill bonuses for advanced medium cannon upgrade. If you've been using the Stabber and you like the artillery build of a Stabber, imagine one of these shooting that at way over the 100-kilometer margin. This thing packs a punch in the form of one heck of an alpha strike from a distance that they may not have even registered that you're on the same grid as them yet. Yeah, okay, they're slow to fire, and anything that gets up close and personal is going to really get under those guns, but that's why we have 3 mid-slots, and for those 3 mid-slots we probably are going to go stasis weapon fires on all 3, because you're going to need them. Alternatively, though, of course, you can build this with autocannons. Autocannons, 6 of those. 6 medium autocannons is always going to be a nasty surprise if that pulls up next to you. Yeah. I love the Hurricane. It's actually one of the faster battle cruisers in the game, which make it not quite so painful to pilot. And again, it just looks astonishing. This is one of my favourite looking hulls in the entire game. It just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Who doesn't want to pilot one of these? Especially since it is literally floating death. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the different pirates here, because ultimately, yeah, I can spend a lot of time talking about the Blood Ravers, the Sanchez Nation, Guristas Pirates, Serpentis Corporation, and the Angel Cartel. But ultimately, if you know about those ships already, you'll know that the cruisers become available at Tech Level 7. That means, yes, you can now start making those blueprints, and you can start building those ships, though do be warned, something like a Cinnabal or a Gila, it takes 200 million just to turn the oven on, and the material list. The material list is basically like 5 entire systems worth of asteroid belts and planets. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I do not expect those to go for anything less than $1 billion, probably 1.5. So you're going to need basically 1.5 billion in order to build one of those monstrosities. The reason I have come to this tree, though, is because I want to head into the ore tree to mention that, yes, Tech Level 7 unlocks a very special ship for all of you miners in the form of the Retriever. Now, the Retriever is the first of your strip mining vessels, and this is something that I'm going to cover in a dedicated video. I have covered strip miners before, but in the open beta test only. I will be coming back and doing this in live. I've got one already in my hangar ready to showcase. Now, trait description here is very important. It says +1 maximum strip miners. That doesn't mean it gets 1 additional strip miner. That means it can fit strip miners. Here you can see that it's got 2 high slots. Both of those can be strip miners, and indeed should be strip miners. This is your first strip mining ship. This thing will empty out an asteroid belt on its own, but it is ludicrously slow, and it is a very big target. 0.5 inertia modifier, one heck of a mass there, the flight velocity of 168, and a signature radius of 128.9 mean that this poor little thing is a sitting duck when it's in a belt, and I do expect to hear stories very soon of people losing their first Retriever. They're not cheap, but they do bring in an awful lot of ore in a very short period of time. Does strip mining replace regular mining? No. Regular mining is still better on an individual asteroid. If you just want Noxium and you go out in a Venture 3 with the full fittings, you're going to get that Noxium an awful lot faster than a retriever pulling up next to that same asteroid and just getting the one. Ultimately, the idea of a strip miner is that it takes longer to do an individual asteroid, but it will quite happily harvest 5 or 6 at a time. So it's a case of you don't get to be picky about what ores you want, you just get everything. That's what these do, and I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for the retrievers for either reason, whether you're an industrialist looking forward to the massive amounts of ores that these can pull in, or if, like me, you're a pirate and you're looking forward to getting your first retriever kill mail. I am actually starting up a channel on our Discord server for those of you who are on there to start posting your kill mails as well, not just those of us in Catskull. There are some really interesting stories I want to be hearing more of, and I'm looking forward to receiving kill mails of all of your first retrievers. And there we go, this rather lengthy video is Tech 7 in a nutshell. It's a brief look at everything that becomes available once you hit Tech Level 7, and I will be doing in-depth videos on most of those ships. Obviously there are some that are just a little bit like there's no point yet. Again, arbitrators and things like that. The amount of requests I've had for people saying, please can you do a video on the arbitrator? There's no point. There is no point until we have weapon disruptors added to the game. But rest assured, there is a video on weapon disruptors coming soon, and as soon as they are added to the game, yes, I will do an arbitrator video. Anyway, folks, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Which ship are you most excited for once Tech 7 lands for you? Have you got a ship already? Obviously, this is on the 17th. Some of you will have hit Tech Level 7 like I did yesterday. Have you got a ship already that you're running and enjoying? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Come find me on social media. You know the drill. Otherwise, folks, happy sailing and see you in New Eden.